Alright everyone, it's time for a little bit of a pep talk because there are more and more people that seem demoralized, and like I pointed out before, if you expect failure when you're attempting to do something, that you're bothering to attempt to do at all, it means you probably will fail. Because you're anticipating it, so you're pulling your punches, you're not working as hard towards your goals. It's better to expect or at least work towards victory and put it out of your head the odds. It's better to ignore them, generally speaking, and just try your hardest and not surrender. Giving up is the worst thing. It's almost worse, like you try and then you make yourself fail. That will cause more regret than not even bothering to try. The best thing you can do is try and succeed, but if you fail, it should at least be because of something that was out of your control. What I would say is that for those of you who are interested in freedom and expression and the continuation of Western civilization existing, the continued existence of the more enlightened life that's been built by the Western world, don't worry too much, because even it's always darkest before dawn, so to speak, and ultimately, if you look over like the last 20 years, there's actually been a steady march towards more freedom. Believe it or not, if you really think about it, in many ways, things have improved over time, partially due to the internet. If you think about the communications landscape, 30 years ago, you're barely getting public access cable shows. They get throttled by the FCC over and over. People get like obscenity charges and shit. And they're slapping warning labels on music that today, you would let a 5-year-old listen to. We don't really have that anymore. And so the move towards moralism on a handful of big tech platforms ultimately is offset by the existence of an entirely new generation of technology that's totally out of their control and growing less in their control over time. Like a couple of years ago, if Gab had tried to release like Dissenter, they probably would have gotten stomped out for doing it. Now there's an infrastructure there that's allowed them to promulgate their app, that allows people to comment on the parts of the internet where nobody can comment anymore. In fact, half of YouTube at this point, which is the dumbest decision that they've ever made. By the way, I completely oppose it. And they're pissing off a very large proportion of their very large creators, and it's not a good business model. Ultimately, though, I believe that will prevail. Which is that what I've said now is that for the next few years, you can expect things to steadily get worse, at least insofar as anything that the lamestream has significant sway over. But the thing is, because the lamestream is always boring, because the establishment is always dumb and makes stupid decisions, tries to over-centralize things, abuses people, and alienates them, people will begin to build their own internet infrastructure. There will be new political movements that will crop up. We're already seeing that. There are new political movements cropping up, especially all over Europe and Africa at the moment. Indeed, in Latin America as well. Dude, there are parties in Africa whose sole platform is end Chinese colonialism. That wasn't a thing 5 years ago. The political landscape of the world is completely shifting. Over the last few decades, though, things have generally gotten better. Like 20, 30 years ago. Okay, you have your standalone website and not much else. You don't have the ability to reach millions of people streaming or something like that. It doesn't exist. You don't have the idea of maybe drone deliveries or something. The only problem is a high degree of centralization in a few dozen very large corporations is delivering a lot of those products and services that we now enjoy. Wealth has generally inclined, although that's a little bit more of a that's a little bit of a double-edged sword when you think about it that way, because adjusted for inflation, I guess the wealth hasn't really gone up. Generally, though, the degree of comfort that people are now accustomed to is considerably better than 30 years ago in most parts of the world. Places that were undeveloped are developing. Places that were developing in some cases have fully developed. You have a few backsliders like Venezuela, and that's always the result of, again, centrality and socialism, which we should seek to avoid at all costs. Like, we need less centralization on the internet, too. It's like when you've got a domain registrar that's capable of deplatforming your website, well, I guess you don't own a website anymore. You're just sort of renting it perpetually under ever-changing terms of service that could preclude you from using the internet at all at any given time. But by the way, we need net neutrality, say the people on the left. It's very funny. But what I would say is I expect that after a few more years of this negative movement, you can expect things to fairly rapidly get better. Some sort of impetus will be created for people to begin leaving behind the existing sort of more censored side of human communication, not just on the internet, but communication, politics, parties that support censorship and war and dumb shit like that. Because as technology and philosophy progresses, it's becoming less and less intrinsically necessary for people to have significant power structures in their day-to-day lives. It's really becoming less like government will never be vestigial, but the idea of a government that's involved in as much as governments tend to be will become, I believe, over time vestigial. They'll be peeled back layer by layer. Things that they currently do will be given over to private individuals. You will have more capitalism. You'll certainly have less war. There will be no need for it. We can literally outgrow the very concept. Be nice if we could do that already, but that's utopian bullshit. There will always be some degree of struggle. Again, waiting for the next Carrington event, and then all of that progress goes away. But probably not going to happen in our lifetime, so get used to the internet being around, I suppose. So don't worry too much. Don't get too demoralized, because if you get demoralized, you can't fight as much. The military. There's too many orcs. We can't fight them all. Well, yeah, you can, but you have to believe in yourself to some degree. Yeah, you might get an arrow to the knee, but you should at least put up a fight. That's about all. Peace out.